start the class. We will do the invocation first. I will do one line at a time today and assert the meaning along with it for today. And so that, we are just also revising and at the same time developing the memory of it. And next time onwards, one of you can follow after me till you become more grounded in it. So, the very first sentence, when we do Om, is a prayer, is a call to Ishwara in whichever form you associate or recognize. That is acceptable, even if you don't recognize any general natural law. The idea is it should represent that aspect which is superior most, which in your mind, the point of acceptance that there will be things that are not in your control and there seems to be a larger scheme, whatever it be, under whose care it is, it doesn't matter, but it is not centered on me. That's the idea. So Ishwara possessing is a very essential aspect, and the meaning of Ishwara is subjective to each one. As per your development, as per your own inner growth, the meaning keeps modifying and meaning keeps growing on you. So anything is okay. So when we say Om, we in our minds remember that aspect and then start with the line Sahana Vavatu. So may that superior most, highest power, the Daivi factor, the what is called as God, Ishvara, Sagunam or Nirgunam, whatever is acceptable, may that higher power protect both of us. Sahana Vavatu. May he protect both of us. Sahanau Bhunaktu. May that supreme power nourish us both. Nourish us means provides us with everything that is necessary for Vidya Grahanam. Whatever is essential for us, whatever is required by us in our being life, in our Sharir Yatra, in our existential form, whatever is required in the physical form, may we be provided for it and also nourished as we keep absorbing the knowledge, may we also keep getting the artha, the prasad, the phal of the knowledge. May we also keep digesting the knowledge so that it nourishes us, so that it becomes a source of joy, nourishment, and because of which we grow ourselves. In return, these are things we've asked from Bhagwan. In return also, it's like a promise made on our ends. Sahaviryam karavavahai. Both of us are making that promise. It's like Sankalpa. We are asserting to ourselves that may we both put in that exertion that is required for Vidya to be acquired, for learning the knowledge. May we develop that viryam, that strength. May we develop the samarthyam, Shankara says. May we have that samarthyam. May we commit ourselves to developing the samarthyam required for Vidya. Tejasvinavadhitamastu. May the knowledge that we learn, adhitam, जो सीख लिया, जो हम सीख रहे हैं और जो सीख लिया है, may that knowledge make us tejasvi. May that knowledge, digested knowledge, bring about an inner transformation, clear our minds, clear our buddhis, and may we be effulgent within ourselves. That means may that growth become clarified, crystallized, make us Tejasvi. Tejasvi is a little difficult word to translate because there are so many meanings associated with it, but it means that inner clarity, inner brilliance, shining from within. Tejasvi, Adhitam, from what we study. That should be clear to us so that, it dawns. Like my favorite always is how Eureka, that moment, Eureka, that Eureka moment is what, something fell into place. And what falls into place in knowledge could be held Janma Janmantara confusion. But when it falls into place, it's like that jigsaw puzzle. When a piece of information falls into our existing state of thinking and opens it up, it makes us Tejasvi from within. Ma vidvishavahai. May we not hate each other. May we not develop a dislike for each other. May there be no misunderstandings between us. And in the regular class format, sometimes it so happens that their personality erupts or people get into arguments on the topic. Means, in other words, let this transaction of knowledge be enjoyable for both of us and be useful and productive and efficient in its purpose for both of us, for which both of us recognize that we need a lot of anugraha. Anugraha word means there are a lot of things that have to fall into place for us to have this leisure in our life, that we can engage our minds into something that is not directly, immediately going to be seen as a result of usefulness in our life straight away. It has tremendous usefulness, but immediately I don't have to go out and work. I don't have to think in terms of where is my bread and butter coming. I don't have to, etc. Even that fundamental thing we require to sit here, from those, we know it comes with a lot of anugraha. That because there are factors out of our control and anything can take us out of this pursuit, the student more than a teacher actually does this prayer because the student's perspective is that there is a value to this knowledge and they know that no amount of self-study can actually bring about that perception. This is held in parampara. You need a teacher in between to communicate it correctly. Therefore, there are so many odds to missing the point, to missing the opportunity of learning something which requires in between an element of human resource, which is not just pertaining to that human resource. So there is this inner value of the rarity of that opportunity. I always equate it, if you hold something else in your mind as valuable, if I was a mountaineer, had a joy or passion for mountaineering, my idols would be different. So I would consider myself greatly lucky if I would have got an opportunity to be with those people. So what we place value on in our life is dependent upon our interest in life. So a student of Vedanta, Shastra's saying, is one whose interest is not in anything that is laukik, which he can get by effort put in the world. And if I want money, I can put effort in the world, I can get effort. If I want anything in the world, any pleasure in the world, I can put human effort and I will get it. But if I want Atma Vidya, if I want to know the means of moksha, if I want to just know the Gyan as is, or I just want to know the Shastra without having a utilitarian value attached to it, then I know that this becomes special. In that sense, it becomes important. So I need quietude from cosmic sources, from external sources, from within myself, that may become like holding back the knowledge. So Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So all three levels. Cosmic level, may the forces, we are asking for the Supremost, may he manage all these temporarily. It's always, the prayer always is temporary. While I am engaged in this knowledge, keep all my atmospheric elements in place. Only you can, I can't. While I'm engaged in this knowledge, keep my external conditions without disturbances. Only you can, I can't. But there are certain things within myself which I can, I would take care of them. But what I cannot, let all my sources of mental clash, clash means disturbance, what can be a source of mental agitation to me, for some time, I am leaving them out. When you do, when you start, I don't know how many of you do that, but supposing there's a physical class, or when you go to a mandir, when you go to a mandir or any worshipful place, you would leave your shoes outside, yeah, for some reason. In the same way, supposing now, when I take a class, I am keeping my phone switched off. Now, what does that mean? Switching it off means for some time there is a message gone to the world to contact me that I am not available at this time. That is the spirit in which a student and a teacher both engage in this study. By doing this prayer, it's like sending a message to the world, to the forces outside, that now we are engaged in something that is extremely valuable to me and very subtle a topic it is. So I need my entire mental capacities in this. Therefore, for some time, O Ishwara, Hey Bhagwan, take care of everything. Let my mind not get engaged in any other pursuit at this point except this. So this is the spirit, this is the meaning of the invocation, and this is the mantra. And as I said, mantras have dhvani, they have the intonation, the swaras. And those swaras would have a deep impact, and they were kept in the manner of swaras so that the listener could enjoy it, hold it, and the knowledge was packed within it. But in time, most of the Vedas are lost because people stopped chanting it. It started getting written, and therefore written word will not have the swaras. So swaras have got lost in time in our country, in our tradition. Very few are left, but most of us, when we come to Vedanta, we don't even have access to that. So we start with the meaning and the tune in general, but the idea is not so much as Swara's reinforcement as is the meaning's reinforcement. So it's just a prayer, and certainly over a period of time, every class when it is done, it has that little percolating effect, because we have never seen a student of Vedanta ever being deprived of anything that he needs for his life also. So maybe this anugraha of Ishwara follows such pursuits of Atma Vidya. So this is a general point that this is what we were emphasizing on, being one of your second principal study subjects. I want to give enough importance to this because as we keep evolving in study, these things are not of importance at all. This importance will stop here now. We will just chant each one to us, tune it to the meaning, and then chant to get the benefit, to get the anugraha of it. So this is the fundamental invocation, not a part of this book at all, of Upadesha Sara. Comes in Krishna Yajurved. We are just bringing it here for Maryada. And then we saw that why we started with Upadesha Sara being a Prakarna Grantha, and how it is a Prakarna Grantha, gets qualified being a Prakarna Grantha because Anubandha Chatushtayam of Upadesha Sara is the same as the Anubandha Chatushtayam of any Vedantic text, and in the Vedas, Vedanta part, Dhyanakanda part. So with that, we saw yesterday that the first 15 shlokas, here it's verses, shlokas of Upadesha Sara, they describe in accordance to what Vedas hold in its first section called the Karma Kand. And that first section, Karma Kand, emphasizes on physical rituals and mental worship, mental upasanas. Upasanas is mentally doing a karma, with physical karma being less important. Emphasis is on mind karma, mental karma, and rituals meant emphasis more on physical karma. Mind is secondarily involved in it. So Karm Kand meant a whole lot of knowledge. It's knowledge. Knowledge regarding uh, sadhanas in the form of karmas and upasanas that are beneficial to human lives. This is knowledge. So they are beneficial is what the Veda says. Like any knowledge is beneficial to human being. This is also a knowledge. And of course, it will be useless. It won't be knowledge. It won't be called knowledge if it's a useless thing. The fact it comes in the definition of knowledge means it's useful. So Karam Kand is got its own purpose and prayojan. So every knowledge that falls into the realms of Vedic karmas or it falls in the realms of upasanas, they are useful, no doubt. But there is a small section of people who, in their earnestness, maybe, that's my interpretation, I have no idea what it is, but just to complete the sentence, maybe they were very earnest, but they hold on to that part of Ved as absolute end. I'm going to repeat the sentence. Veda gives us knowledge of karmas and upasanas because they're useful to human life. But Veda doesn't stop there. These karmas and upasanas are meant to be sadhanas. They're sadhan. They are a means. They're not ends. But there are a whole lot of, or maybe some people, doesn't matter, but a group of people, a group of society, who kind of misperceived it or were misguided or misunderstood, and they started accepting the purpose of Veda to be only to give knowledge about karma and upasana. So they very strongly adhere to this. They are called karmathas. Karmatha means very strong, fanatic, adhering to karmas and upasana as a part of their following the Vedas. These are also referred to as Purva mimamsakas. That's a little technical word, but don't worry about it. If you leave the word out, you will find yourself sometimes or the other in company of some people who are very strongly rigid about certain, ऐसा ही करना है, वैसा ही करना है, ये है तो ये ही करना है. The flexibility is gone from the realm of karma, and the karma becomes more important than even the bhav behind it or the reason behind it. It's like to the point of fault, you need to adhere to it. That thinking is called. It is not that it was alone. That school has got dissipated like all other schools are dissipated. But it's rampant in society even now. That thinking is rampant. So that thinking is what is addressed here in the first verse. To those section of people who believe that this is alone that is necessary and Vedas deliver only these as an end in itself. उनका और कोई कर्म का उनका प्रयोजन नहीं है कुछ. They don't have any other purpose. Veda gives us this knowledge, and what is our duty as a Vaidika or as a follower of Veda, as an astik buddhi? I should only abide in what Veda says, and this is what Veda says. This is quote unquote their language. It is not examined fully, is what other section of people say, because Veda has in it certain parts which are now very famous and popular, which we call as Vedanta. There is totally a different section. So this kind of thinking that a person has, these people are grouped together just for the sake of communication, and they're called Purva mimamsakas. Purva mimamsakas, there is a great, like Vyasa has written on Vedanta, Brahma Sutras. Jaimini has written vastly analyzing the Karmakand portion. They are called Dharma Sutras, Jaimini Sutras. There is a lot of good point in it. But amongst them also, this small section of thinking who would strongly adhere to karma kand are the ones who are addressed here. That thinking is addressed in verse 1 by Ramana. Other salient feature of a Purva Mimamsaka is, which is very essential to note, that if we by mistake see in ourselves such strong, inflexible approach to Vedic karmas or upasanas, there is a distinct characteristic in it, is they are Nirishwarvadi. Nirishwarvadi means they do not accept Ishwara as a part of the teaching of Veda. What is it according to them? According to them, karmas themselves are adequate to give phal. What is the need for Ishwar? Ishwar is associated with phal data. He is associated with the creator of the world. Who are these people? They dismiss Ishwar. Zarurat nahi hai. But they'll follow the karmas. That means they light the fire, they do their daily nitya karmas or occasional karmas, whatever is designed, agnihotras, etc. करेंगे सब कुछ, मगर उनका मानना ये है कि वो कर्म में ही पावर है फल देने का. Why is a karma done by anybody? You do because you want something. Karma ka, it's a unique feature of karma. For them, karma mein hi, it's karma which has got the potential to generate a result. I want to pause here. If you understand this, which is a parallel thinking in present times that is similar to this. Should I repeat myself?
If you do a good deed, you'll get a good result. And
Correct.
if you do a bad deed, it will come back haunting you later.
Wonderful. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely correct. Yes. Anything else?
Karma is a check and balance game. Like
Karma is a
check and balance game. You can't escape it. If
correct.
you are able to fool others, but everything comes back to you. There is a record that is being kept tight.
Correct. But by whom? No. There is a record. They don't say that. It is just that whatever you will do itself is what will bring the result. So do more to get more result. What is it today's material world really talking? Yes, science. Correct. Absolutely. In science today, cause and effect. What is the material world doing today? Entire material world. What are these multinationals achieving? When you work for them, what is the approach there? Karo. Be dynamic, be efficient. And if you do not get the result, get back to your formula, what you applied. Now redefine the formula, remodify the formula. Keep on improving it so that you keep generating a better result. Correct? Is that it?
Yes.
Yeah. This is how it is working. It is ingrained in us. When people study these terms like Purva Mimamsaka, etc., the misconception is कि ये पुराने ज़माने की बातें हो रही हैं. ये तो आजकल है ही नहीं. ये लोग तो है ही नहीं. ये सोच तो है ही नहीं. सोच अभी भी ऐसी ही है. In fact, it is much more spread now. The flaw of this thinking is what is the seed with which you evolve your thinking further. This is already available to us. By default, even I will think like everybody will think by default. If my karma will give me my result. That is why we are very insecure if karma goes out of our life. People today, in previous times, at least there was a time, because when Vedas were kept important in life, then that certain part of your life you have to dedicate for your inner growth. Dheere dheere in the society's outlook as it changed, that aspect of time has gone from our life. So right from the beginning, right from morning till we sleep, year after year, there is, even after retirement, you're supposed to work, you're supposed to be independent, you're supposed to earn. That factor of karma is so essential. There the thinking is, though you know the result is uncertain, everything is not in your hands, आपको दिखता तो है, मगर आप उसको somehow correlate नहीं करते कि ये result सारा का सारा हमारे हाथ में नहीं है. Where is it that the generation of a result happens? How does the generation of a result happen? Is it entirely only based in karma? कि कर्म ही सिर्फ फल देगा? Or is there another factor which comes into account to give a result to an action performed? Karmatha means, that thinking means, I have not examined this question, this possibility I have not entertained. That means I'm a non-thinking person. I'm not thinking deeply, okay. Maybe I'm thinking, but not enough. Which means there is no other factor other than my own actions. My actions alone are the ones that are going to give me the results. This is going to be analyzed. Why there is a flaw in this kind of a thinking. It's a limited thinking. It is not entirely correct by experience. The third minor part of it is why all this is based is Karma Kandi, Purva Mimamsakas just do not accept that Vedas also has Jnana Kand. Means Veda is divided into two sections. Karma Kand, Jnana Kand. According to a Purva Mimamsaka, Veda doesn't have this division. वो पूरा का पूरा कर्म कांड है. So what about those verses? This is a huge argument in Brahma Sutra, in the fourth sutra of Brahma Sutra. Huge argument, and Shankara gives beautiful logic over there and clinches it to say why there are the two sections there because of this Anubandha Chatushtayam, and that is a pivotal factor to define which text becomes Vedantic and which falls into the realm of karma. So here they do not accept it. And not only they do not accept it, when you are questioning them back, but what about that part of Veda which talks of Brahman as Nityam, Brahman as Sarvagatam, Brahman being absolute truth, which is the sustaining factor, the dissolving factor, the creator, as, what about that you are Atma, you are Brahman? What about these Vakyas in Vedanta, in Vedas? Their response to this argument is, point is, they said, every land has certain area in their country where there is useless land, like a desert. It's a desert land. So in fact, the whole earth would have certain areas like the Saharas, a completely desert land. कोई purpose नहीं है उनका. वो है, they're a part of it, but you can do. They're not they're futile. They're not fertile. You cannot use them for your advantage. Because what is man's outlook? He wants to use everything to his advantage. So every place we have, everything we have in the nature, we must use it for ourselves. It's natural. Every being thinks like that. But human being has a power to convert it also. So we look at everything in nature as useful to us or not useful to us. So this section of people, they say ये जो वेदांत के वाक्य है ना सारे, whatever is Vedanta saying, and when they just talk, it's like they just talk. They have no proof of that. They themselves say Atma cannot be seen, cannot be felt, cannot be touched. Atma is not a vishay. वो तो खुद ही कहते हैं मतलब yes. तो फिर how do you know there is Atma? So when you say, but then why is it in a Veda? Because you accept Veda as a valid. In fact, for you, Veda is ultimate. And these are the statements in the Veda. So what is it? How do you see these statements? They say they are just like, they are nishprayojanam, maximum if you will lend it. And that's a very important point. Maximum if I have to stretch myself, this Karmatha will say, he says this part of Jnanakand is only doing stuti. is glorifying the doer of the action by calling him, you are Atman, you are Brahman, you are not born, you will not die, you are eternal. ये सब कह के अच्छा लगने लगता है. So you feel you are more empowered. So because of which, the karma that you will do is better. So the entire Vedanta part means all the Upanishads, whose prayojan is entirely different. The entire Vedantic study gets reduced to making it as an appendix to Karma Kand. And appendix also only this much, that who's already the performer of karma, वो और महान देखे अपने आप को. This is a thinking. And it's very essential to pick this thinking up. Even just for information doesn't matter first, but you will see it slowly in society everywhere. The flaw of this thinking. And so Purva Mimamsaka is a class representing those people who believe themselves to be all powerful and their capacity to act as all important. इसके बाहर कुछ नहीं है. So everything is centered within this. And that is not wrong entirely, because that is an experience for everyone also. But Shastra says it is wrong from the fact that you have not considered everything. Your factors are incomplete. Why was Purva Mimamsaka picked up? This is just a very small side point. Why has the book picked up? Why has Ramana started with correction of Purva Mimamsaka? Now that is a contextual thing. And that context is actually, for today, it is a story for us, but it was obviously a truth at the point when it occurred. Ramana Maharshi has a devotee, a very, how do I put that word? Devotees anyway don't need qualification. This is a devotee of Ramana. Before he came to Ramana, when Ramana was there, his presence had spread internationally, even though he moved nowhere. But him being a Mukta Purusha, or close to it from people's perspective, he was given his name had started spreading without him needing to do anything. Him just being himself. So, dhire dhire, people were beginning to get curious about who is this person, because after a very long time, there was a big gap of jnanis, matured people becoming matured to the point of Atma Vidya recognition. There's a huge gap in society. So you have very few names that could qualify into that category. So when he was there, this spread, and this is a devotee whose name is Muruganar. He was a scholar and a poet. Before he met Ramana also, he'd become his devotee. So at that stage, he had written some kritis, some poems glorifying Ramana. And they were they were left to him, his own self. And later he met Ramana in the ashram. And Ramana obviously usually was reticent. He was a quiet person. And he would give darshan, but he was by himself mostly. So, but everybody, because it started living and it almost became a ashram kind of a place, people had to do things like, if you have a household to run, so as more people gathered, there were more activities. So Muruganar was also associated with some actions, and while doing one of those actions, some seva in the ashram, he was singing those verses that he had composed himself for Ramana. He did not know Ramana overheard these. And when Ramana overheard these verses, he asked him about these verses, and he says, and obviously Muruganar says, I have written. And Ramana just said, I believe all this from whatever I have read and heard. He says, these are very similar to the verses to the style of Manikava Chakkar. Manikava Chakkar was again another 8th century or something. I've forgotten the details. It's in the book. 8th century or something. He was a scholar poet now. A very wise Advaiti scholar. A typical characteristic of an Advaiti Jnani is that you can hardly find where knowledge begins and where it ends, and where bhakti begins and where it ends, because they're kind of merged. Now, it's not an intellection, and it is not purely just, like Saguni would do bhakti of a god elsewhere. This is a bhav that emerges from recognition of things as they are. And when you start seeing it as they are, Manikava Chakkar, and there were a few others in that era who wrote such in form of verses, because the literature at that time was a different flavor. And Ramana was very fond of these verses by Manikava Chakkar. So he just told Muruganar, he says the style is very, very similar to him. And Muruganar was extremely touched by this, because hardly Ramana would say anything. And when, it's almost like your own idol has complimented you. Just, if it comes from that source, somehow it has a different value. It has a different meaning to you. For Muruganar, it was something like that. Now that Ramana had heard it and acknowledged it, there was huge inspiration in Muruganar to make more verses, to write more. Because for Muruganar, it seems all those who write in books, for him, Ramana was everything. For him, he didn't need to have this pantheon of gods. And for him, all of them had manifested in the form of Ramana. He wanted to convey this idea into poem. To do that, he picked up, because he wanted to say, Bhagwan Ganesh bhi Raman hai, Ram bhi Raman hai, Krishna bhi Raman hai, Vishnu bhi Raman hai, Buddha bhi Raman hai, Christ bhi. He even brought Christ. He says Christ bhi Raman. For him, he did not need anything else. Sab kuch yahi hai, idhar hi hai. To convey this, he started creative. That because it's a personal work, it was a creative activity. He creatively started picking up incidents, say from Puranas, say from Ganesh Puran, Vishnu Puran, different Puranas, one highlighting incident which would glorify that god. So from Vishnu Puran, he would pick up an incident where Vishnu was glorified. But instead of writing Vishnu there, he wrote Ramana there. So the same activity as if it was done by Ramana. Now this was the basic background. When it came to Shiva portion, Shiva, in that, there was a story of, it is popular in Shiv Puran, a story where a set of rishis, karmathas, purva mimamsakas, who believed karma to be everything. Not only everything, they believe karma to give even moksha, because for them moksha is being in Swarga, and Swarga is eternal. Veda is eternal. You don't need a creator because there is no creation. Creation, why do you need a creator? This has always been. So there was nothing began. So since the hypothesis is it was always there, you don't need a creator then. So you don't need Ishwara then. So everything falls into their thinking like that. When it came to Shiva, that story where this rishis with this idea of thinking, there was a group of rishis, they were householders. They had their wives also who would help them perform prasad and things like that. They had all got together to do one particular kind of a karma. I think it's in the book, I've forgotten the name. They did it, they wanted to do a particular karma, and in doing that karma, because they were still so devoted as karmathas, and that karma probably was oblated to Shiva, Shiva himself felt, as such sincere sadhus, such sincere rishis were doing such tapas, he felt he needed to make a correction in their thought. So what he did was he obviously when they do this in Puranas, you hear these stories. Shiva is not as versatile in his appearance as Vishnu is. Vishnu loves to take all kinds of forms and garbs. So Shiva, to make this correction to Karmakandi rishis, he takes the help of Vishnu, and together they decide to teach them a lesson. This is a story. What is the lesson? Vishnu comes in the form of Mohini, enticing. And Shiva, he comes in the form of a handsome sadhu. Very handsome, very, oh, if in today's features, a broad shoulder, square cut face, and etc. If you go on, like Shiva is always shown also, extremely good looking and tejasvi. So all of that, and he comes as a sadhu, but extremely attractive. Now what happens is these rishis are all got together and they are preparing the yagna kund and things like that, and the wives are at home preparing the prasad, and Vishnu comes first in front of the wives who are preparing. And when they see Mohini, Shiva comes first in the form of this handsome person in front of the wives. And when the wives see this handsome sage, they forget their own husbands, and they're so taken by Shiva in his presence. He's also come as a rishi, he's also come as a sadhu, but somehow at that point, they were so pulled by this that they completely forgot their duty of preparing the prasad. And as Shiva started moving away, they started following him. Like you hear in Krishna Leelas also, etc. They started following him he started going to the forest, they started following him. They all forgot that they were supposed to prepare prasad. Their husbands are waiting back there in the Yajna Kund. Jab tak prasad nahi aa raha hai, they can't complete. And for them, that karma meant it was a very rare occasion. That karma could only have been done like once in a lifetime kind of an occasion, comes in once in few years, many years in fact. So for them, that opportunity was very valuable. While Shiva took them away, Vishnu comes as Mohini in front of them. And as Vishnu comes in front of them, certainly the same effect, So they are also enticed by, and they completely forget that they were involved in preparing for this karma. And sure enough, Vishnu also takes them away, certain place, dire. And after some time as they go, suddenly the rishis realize, what are they doing? Who's this so enticing a woman, or who's this, And I am sorry, I forget the details as always of most of the stories. But the part of it was that they suddenly get this, they awake from their stupor and they feel ashamed, they feel embarrassed. What did they do? And they started returning back to the karma ground, the yajna ground. As they come, they're waiting for their wives. Wives are sure enough not yet woken up from their stupor. They are still very, very engrossed. And finally, the rishis get very angry. They say, let us go and find why is our wives taking so much time to make the prasad? And as they're moving towards it and they realize that wives are nowhere to be seen, and then blah, 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 they go and they realize wives are completely taken into, I don't know how to make that, but spellbound. That's the word. Completely spellbound by this so good looking, so etc. And the rishis, they're only karmathas, they're not gyanis. The rishis, their vague, their anger, their jealousy, everything erupts. And they just realize, oh my God, something has happened and there's an obstacle to their karma. Kuch to hua hai. That something has worked. So they think their karma is deficient. So they want to go back and improve upon it. So they try and bring the wife. So they decide there's a particular karma, again written in the book. I should have read it before. What is that karma called? Which is actually to hurt others. So they decide they are going to do this karma because the wives were just not coming back. They are going to invoke that karma to hurt this who's Shiva in the form of that rishi. And they start doing that karma. No effect on him. Nothing happens to Shiva. After some time, they realize something is greatly missing. उनका कर्म का कोई असर ही नहीं हो रहा है, whereas karma itself should have had the effect, no? The karma was meant to harm the other person. So they were doing that karma, exact, and they were very Abhijara karma, correct, thank you. These are the Abhijara karmas. These karmas were meant to hurt the person. And they were jnanis. They knew their mantras, they knew everything that was written as per the book. They were following it, and they have followed karmas their life. So they were confident people who knew their knowledge. Yet they found that the karma was ineffective, completely ineffective. It didn't even touch. They didn't know who he was. They just thought he's a rishi, and their karma should have destroyed that person. But it didn't happen. So they finally acknowledge something is wrong. They are rishis, so they also have wisdom. So they acknowledge that something is missing. Then they take the sparsha grahanam in that sense, and they ask this mendicant, who are you? What happened? Do you know why our karma failed on you? Because only you can know why it failed on you. You have to be something superior than this karma. Somewhere our karma for first time we are seeing has got limited. That it also doesn't have the power to generate the result that it is supposed to generate. So who are you? And that's where Shiva comes in his Shiva form, and he gives them this particular portion. These in the Puranas, he gives them now the Vedantic portion, and the limitation of karma he teaches them in the Purana. That portion, when Muruganar was writing in his composition, as he wrote it occurred to him, when Shiva himself is here as Ramana, why should I bother to write those verses? So he went, requesting with great whatever, and he requested Ramana to compose that section of that story which Shiva is giving to the rishis and to be included in his composition. And that section is these 30 verses of Upadesha Sara that Ramana writes. So a lot of people in the world believe Ramana had his own philosophy. Impossible. You cannot have your own philosophy. There cannot be an independent discovery of truth. Whoever discovers the truth has fallen into this category, has fallen in the knowledge that is already there. It is already in absolute knowledge. You can't discover absolute. Nobody can discover. So what Ramana writes in these 30 verses is what Shiva said to them, and Ramana could write in his words because it was verifiable for him. He knew that in immediate way, they were not words. What was said there, Ramana could, and therefore the last 15 verses of Upadesha Sara, which is the Vedantic text, that portion of Atma Vichar, Ramana puts his inquiry, the words over there, and that becomes a tangible portion for a mumukshu to ground himself into. That's a direction. It's like a beacon light. It gives the direction to internal inquiry by showing how the inquiry is to be made. So why Purva Mimamsakas were picked up? This was contextual in his first verse. That is why it was important. And therefore, to understand the Purva Mimamsaka's limitation, why karmas are not so important. What is the importance truly of karmas? In the Gita, in the 18th chapter, that karmatas think there is no other factor required. What does Vedanta think? We are clear now, I think, what karmatas have said. They don't need Ishwara. But what is it that Vedanta says is the role of karma, and what is that extra ingredient if there is any? That gets explained in this verse, these verses in 18th chapter, 13th, 14th and 15th, where Krishna is telling Arjuna. What does he say? He says, O Mahabaho, Arjuna, Panchaitani Karanani. 5 causes, 5-fold causes, 5 types of causes. Panch etani, these 5 karanani, causes. Of what? For what? Siddhaye sarva karmanam. Siddhye sarva karmanam. For the siddhi of all actions, for accomplishment of all actions. These are the 5 causes for accomplishing any action. O Arjuna, Nibodha me, know from me. Krishna is telling Arjuna, I will tell you, know from me the 5 causes that are essential for completion, successful accomplishment of any action. Where are these written? Sankhya Proktani, as said in the Sankhya. Sankhya in Gita is used in the 2nd chapter. Krishna starts it and he means Vedanta. Not Sankhya school, not Sankhya Darshan. He means Sankhya as Vedanta. Sankhya Proktani, as said in the Sankhya, as said in Vedanta. And what is the feature of Vedanta? Kritante. Krita ante. Ante means end. Krita means of whatever is done. Vedanta is that which is the culmination of all action. All action culminates in Vedanta. So Vedanta becomes the source where karmas no longer have an effect. So from the standpoint of Vedanta, these are the 5 causes for accomplishing any karma. From karmata's point of view, no. 5 are not the causes. Karta is needed. Okay, let's go here first. What are these 5 causes according to in the Gita? Adhishthanam 1. Karta 2. Prithak vidham karanam 3. Vividhaha prithak cheshta 4. Daivam 5. Cha eva atra panchamam. These are the 5 factors here which I am going to learn from me, O Arjuna, that are needed for accomplishment of any action. What are these? Adhishthanam means the very source, body. Karmo ka sabse pehla adhar, sharir. And Shankara even goes on in the commentary of this verse, he goes on to say, it is where you experience the emotions, the thoughts, the feelings. That is the Adhishthan. Karta, a very important point, because first verse of Upadesha Sara is going to be from the entire understanding is around this. Karta is the second point. Who is a Karta? I am the doer. The doer notion. Karanam, prithak vidam, various means to do an action. So supposing I need to cut a vegetable, I need a knife, and then if I have to cook, then I need something more. So all kinds of means that are required in the performance of an action. In Vedic karmas, it would mean all the samagris and etc. So prithak, various kinds. So you need many means. There are many causes. Vividhaha cha prithak cheshta. The various kinds of cheshtas, efforts or functions that are required in performing an action. And these functions are the pranas that we have seen, the pancha pranas, prana, apana, samana, vyana, udana. The physiological functions that are also required, the energy required, and etc. So, vividhaha cha prathak cheshta, the various cheshtas that are required. The fifth, and that's why I'm writing it in red here, just to highlight it, daivam. Daivam is the fifth factor. And what is that daivam? Whatever is not in your control is called daivam. Sara karam karke bhi, there is something that is not in my control. Where my limitation falls in action, and yet to complete it I would need some more which is not in my hands. That factor is daivam, related to devta, related to devas. Means I need some extra. It is like saying what is in my purview and what is outside my sight. That factor which is not in my sight at all. But it is still needed to complete the action. Because if I don't have that factor with me and I don't even know about it, then my action will always be deficient. It can never result fully, accomplished result. For a karma to be accomplished is the word. So without daivam, we are doing actions. But we are not certain about anything and we go back to trying to improve the action. Further, he goes on to say, Sharira Vang Mano Bhihi Yat Karma Prarabhate Naraha. Whatever karma prarabhate, Naraha, whatever karma a person starts, whatever be the karma, whether it is physical karma, Sharira, Vang, oral, or Manaha, by the mind. Whatever be the source from where the adhishtan has taken, whatever be your adhishtan karma source, Nyayam va viparitam va. Whether it is properly done, whether it is diligently done, whether it is a dharmic karma, whether it is a good karma, whether it is a proper karma, or viparitam, adharma, whether it is a wrong karma, whether it is improper karma, whether it is a deficient karma, whatever. Whether it is a good karma, punya karma, or a pap karma, bad karma, incomplete karma, whatever be it, panchaite tasya hetavaha. These five are the hetu for the any kind of karma done anyway, anywhere, by anyone. Hetu, they are the hetu. These five are the causes, hetu, for all kinds of karmas. So what is the fifth hetu? Daivam. What are the other hetus? The other hetus are sharir and your means, etc., etc. Tatraivam sati kartaram atma. Now starts the correction. Tatraivam sati, aisa hote hue, that there are these five factors for any karma. This is like a statement of fact. Karmathas don't know about daivam. So they say your knowledge is incomplete. But there are these five factors. Aisa hote hue, kartaram atmanam kevalam pashyati. Tu yaha, but tatraivam sati, aisa hote hue, yaha, jo bhi, whoever, pashyati, dekhta hai, kevalam atmanam kartaram. He sees only himself as the karta. Whereas what is daivam? Not himself at this point. He sees only himself as the karta. Akrit buddhitvat sapashyati. Akrit buddhi. Because his buddhi is still not fully sorted. I'm using the word sorted. Akrit buddhi means it's not fully accomplished buddhi. It's not a krit matlab की हुई. मतलब पूरी थ्रू आउट सोची हुई बुद्धि नहीं है ये. मतलब अभी ट्रेन्ड नहीं है, अभी ठीक से सोचती नहीं है ये. A lot of impulsive people just don't think. They move result to result kind of a thing. They are not logically presenting. They are not thinking people. Akrit buddhitvat. Because they are akrit buddhi, because of it, They call themselves karta alone, themselves alone as the karta. आत्मा को वो कर्ता बोलते हैं, अपने आप को वो कर्ता बोलते हैं. Who are this? यह ये कौन है? These people who think like this. Durmatihi. Matihi means correct thinking. Durmatihi means not vipritamati. Vipritamati means at least it's opposite. तुम उसको correction कर लो. Durmati means direction ही गलत है. पूरी की पूरी thinking गलत है. Their base of thinking is incorrect. What is the incorrection in their thinking? They call themselves, entirely their own selves, as karta. And then one more last, because this defines who is a karta. Gita 3rd chapter 27th verse says, all actions, kriyamanani, whatever are done, karmani sarvashah, all karmas in every way, whatever are done, they belong to prakritaihi gunaihi. The gunas of Prakriti, we saw this in Tattvabodh also, and for those who don't know, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas are the gunas belonging to Prakriti, means all actions that are ever going to be there can be performed. The nature of action is that it rests in gunas. It belongs to Prakriti. But this is a fascinating part and worth reflecting. Ahankara vimudhatma. When one person is deluded with the notion of I, in association with these gunas, with his sharir, etc., he falsely attributes this ahankar to be the karta. So, karta aham iti manyate. I am the doer. So the minute you say ahankar, I am the doer, means you have not considered everything that can go wrong which don't fall into your possible. It means now ahankar has risen. Main karta hu. I have done. If I've done it once, I can do it again. Supposing a person who is a very accomplished person and self-made person, in today's world you call it as self-made people. If I am a self-made person, have you ever met a self-made person? उनकी हवा कुछ अलग नहीं होती अपने. You can feel the, unless and until they are also extremely grounded. They may be self-made, but they can be very grounded because they know it was not entirely their effort. There were lots of factors that were involved for them to have become successful. There were many other hands, there were many other opportunities, there were many other people who contributed to their success. But the one who actually thinks he alone did it, उसका एक अलग होता है सब कुछ. That ahankara vimudhatma karta aham iti manyate. He thinks himself alone to be the karta. Now this brings us to the beginning of the text with this background. Why Ramana starts Upadesha Sara, and what is the very first verse and the second verse? I gave the synopsis yesterday. These are Purva mimamsaka redressals, correction of this thinking that karta alone is enough, and that karma alone is enough, and karma alone is enough because karta is important. As long as I am doing a karma correctly, there is just no way the result will not come. Impossible, because it is ingrained in the karma to give the result. Just as supposing someone was to say, I've not thought through this example fully, so I'm quite open to if it can have some counter paksha, but to my mind what appears to be is, supposing I just say that gravity by itself is enough to make things fall. If that is a principle enough. This is a very important viveka as you move ahead in your vichar, if whoever. Jad और चेतन का विवेक. क्या जड़ है और क्या चेतन है? That comes pivotal to Atma Vidya. Sat क्या है, असत क्या है, नित्य क्या है, अनित्य क्या है, etc. So what is jad and what is chetan? Here Ramana is going to point to us Karma tat jadam. The entire karma is jad. And what is that? Next class, next week, Saturday, we shall start this now. This background, and all those who haven't, you can go over the thing and we will start the text. But you will have to keep the background in mind to appreciate it with nuance, with that, that clarity to dawn, because it's a wonderful part. I mean, the more I think about it, most of the texts where I find these very, very touching, wherever I find, I just can't think anybody else could have done it better. But how can someone put it so simply? And how are we missing it so greatly? How that irony is very shocking sometimes. That इतने आराम से कोई कह सकता था, हम देख सकते थे, लेकिन हम फिर भी नहीं देखते. That is what here he says. And so simple the words are that you can almost feel the flavor of Ramana coming through these verses when you do them. Yes, the verses are in a meter also. Actually, they are in a raga, I believe. I'm not very familiar with music. And the raga that they are sung in is Punagavarali Raga. And I have no details about all this. But I have the tune to some extent, so we will also do it in that tune. It is obviously always subject to improvement. And I will one at a time, and then when some portion is done and you need to revise, there are already, the chanting has been done. We'll send the links of that. So with this, I'll end the class. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschat Dukha Bhag Bhave. Thank you so much. And if you have any doubts, I wanted to ask if there are any doubts so far. You can send a mail. I will only reply on weekends, but Monday to Friday, no replying to nobody. So I will collect your questions if there are. Anybody even here on Facebook, if you have any questions, you can send a mail. But I will not reply back Monday to Friday. I will only address them on Saturday. If it needs for class consumption, if it will be, I'll bring it in class. Otherwise, I'll reply it on a weekend, on Saturday probably, not even Sunday maybe. Okay. So thank you everyone. Take care. Stay safe everyone and remain in anugraha.
Thank you, Deepti ji.